to edition 25 of All Killa, No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri, Pritchard, McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. We do this podcast because we share a mutual interest. It's not hero worship. We both have strong father figures in our life. We're not looking for something extra. And as long as we're doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
Episode 25.
Yeah, 25. Is that a golden anniversary?
I think so, yeah. What would you... Yeah, it is golden, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
The first one, you know, wedding ones, the first one's paper.
Paper, yeah.
Oh, shit's that? I thought you were going to get out of divorce papers.
Oh, yeah, divorce papers. We both made a mistake. Sign this.
This is based on a recommendation by you guys, and one that we had in our crosshairs for a while, which is Carl Panzram, who bummed a lot of people.
Oh, my God. And he doesn't have a nickname.
No.
He doesn't have a nickname. I was actually thinking about this last night, because we said we should give him a nickname.
Yeah.
And I've really struggled. I can't come up with one.
The Minnesota sodomist.
That'll do, I think. I think the Minnesota fibber, actually.
Maybe
we'll
he
get
could
to
be
this.
BTK, but bum torture killer.
Yeah. He's very... there's a lot of bumming, is what we're going to say, in this episode.
Yeah, he's fascinating as well. There's loads of really great, kind of stoic-looking, scary pictures of him as well on the internet. And he was someone who seemed to really relish his role as a serial killer.
He did enjoy it. And he was born on June 28th, 1891, in Warren, Minnesota. And his parents, John and Matilda, were a Prussian couple.
Yeah, we were trying to decide when we were chatting about this earlier, like, what is Prussia? Is it
just Germany, mate?
Yeah, but everything... it is, isn't it? But everything sounded so nice then, like Prussia and Persia, Mesopotamia... which is Iraq. Like, they all sound like, oh, I'd go on holiday to Mesopotamia. Well, it's Iraq. I'm all right, actually.
Yeah, that sounds mystical. Where is it? Oh, yeah, change my mind, it's fine.
Even Constantinople is Istanbul, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and like, Constantinople sounds like such a nice place to go.
Where are you from? Constantinople. So exotic. Well, 6 children, wasn't there, including Carl. So he had 4 older brothers, I think, possibly. We're not 100% sure. And he had a sister. They weren't really nice to him.
No, well, it was a really poor family for a start, because they were these Prussian immigrants. And when they went to school, they'd have to come home and start working on the farm straight away. It was quite a tough life by all accounts. And Dad left when he was about 7.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford to get divorced, so he was like, well, I'll just leave. So then that's one less working person on the farm, so they were even poorer then. His brothers used to beat the shit out of him for, he said anything and everything.
Well, so he says.
So he says, but you think he's a champion bullshitter, don't you?
Look, there's a couple of murders that I do think he did. I just think this bloke had an imagination that was very vivid.
Do you think?
Yeah, we'll get to it in a bit. Billy Bullshit. That's who he is.
That should be his serial killer nickname. The bullshitter of Minnesota.
The bullshit killer. He started very early with his criminal activities, though. When he was 8 years old, he was arrested for being drunk.
What? Drunk and disorderly.
Drunk and disorderly. # legend.
I can imagine one of those, you know, those little like red and yellow Tyco cars that you get as a kid. One of them, just like ploughed into some traffic lights somewhere.
Do you have a licence for this vehicle?
I'll tell you when I've had enough.
And then he started stealing as well. So he's 8 years old. He's hammered, and he's doing all kinds of things, and he gets prosecuted. And then he started stealing, for which he was sent to Minnesota State Training School for Boys, which sounds frightening.
It sounds like a really easygoing place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
No. I read a thing on it that said it was it described it as having a strict regime of brutality, sexual abuse, and Christian indoctrination, which isn't the cell that you want from a summer camp, is it?
No, but those things do go hand in hand.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
It's the Trinity, isn't it?
When he was there, though, he did all kinds of things, didn't he? He didn't like authority.
No.
This is when he started going, hang on a minute, I'm going to rebel against everything. He wouldn't obey orders. He was being abused. He was setting fire to things. He burnt the school down, actually, didn't he?
Yeah, not before spitting in, like... So when he was asked to make coffee for his teachers and stuff, he'd spit in it, often masturbate into it.
Would you like cream in your coffee?
Oh, lattes, you're spoiling us. And he also dumped rat poison in one of his teachers' coffees as well and was found out.
He's such an angry young man,
He really is, isn't he?
Do you think if somebody sat him down and said, just give us a hug, I think a lot of this could have been avoided.
I think if it wasn't whatever it was, 1904, he would be wearing a hoodie.
Yes, without a doubt.
With probably Marilyn Manson on it. Or a long floor-length leather coat. Luckily, guns weren't really around then.
Yeah, to me, when I was reading about this, I was thinking he is just like one of those kids that goes into school and
sprays bullets into a canteen.
He's got that outlook, hasn't he? In 1906, though, after burning the establishment down, quite cool, really. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
So when he's released from the reform school, he goes back to the care of his mother. And his mother isn't particularly happy to see him, for obvious reasons, but also because her favourite son's just drowned as well.
Which is one unlucky family.
Yeah. And he's set back to work on the farm as well as going to school. And then he threatened a teacher, didn't he, in the classroom?
Yeah, they got in a fight, like a physical fight. The teacher, he's not been back 5 minutes. And he basically, while they were fighting, a gun dropped out of his trousers.
Oh, God.
And they were like, get him out. So 2 weeks later, he'd gone. He just jumped. He decided he was going to be a cowboy.
Yeah. I mean, in those days, not necessarily... I mean, now we have a very romantic vision of cowboys, don't we? But in those days, I don't think it was particularly like, I'm going to be a cowboy.
Do you think?
Because it was a hard job. And these were hard times.
Do you think it's like someone going, I'm going to run away and become a manager of a Phones for You shop?
I think it's less depressing than that, actually. Much
Certainly the uniform's a bit cooler, isn't it? At least you get to wear jeans in one of them.
This is where a significant event happens, though, because he runs away to be a cowboy. He starts hopping around trains, again, which sounds quite a romantic thing to be doing, travelling around looking for work.
Genuinely, so much cheaper than what we have to pay. Someone said you pay 80 quid to get to London, or for 20 quid you can just hang off the back of a train.
You just do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like I always think now, maybe if I dressed as a cowboy, because I've got this romantic vision, you got your tickets, please. I'm just going to get a flick knife out. Put my Stetson down. Just straighten my neckerchief. And then watch him walk away. Although I think I'd actually look like Yosemite Sam if I had to wear a cowboy outfit. You know, you just see his
like
feet.
The Milky Bar Kid. He's tiny.
So this is where a significant event happens, because it wasn't fun, as it turns out. As he's on a particular train, he's in a boxcar, and he starts talking to a gang of hobos, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. I don't. That word's weird because I think it's got loads of horrible connotations, but also it sounds delicious.
It does.
Like, oh, you've got to get an Oreo milkshake and you've got to try the hobos.
Oh, Swiss cheese hobo. Ooh, delicious.
But then I don't want to call them bums because of what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So homeless gentlemen.
A homeless gentleman who promised him that they had nice clothes and they could get him somewhere warm to sleep. This is coming from men who are probably wearing Hessian sacks.
Yeah.
So pinch of salt, Carl, pinch of salt. And they gang raped him, didn't they?
Awful. Really awful in this boxcar. And he said, this is a quote from him, he said, I cried, I begged and pleaded for mercy, pity and sympathy, but nothing I could say or do could sway them from their purpose. And then he follows up with something very weird. I had learned that a rectum could be used for other purposes than crepitation. So every day's a school day.
Exactly. You know, if one thing has got to come out of this, it's learning a new...
It's a dick out of an arse. It's what's come out of it.
That's what's come out of it. Just something positive from
You know that whole thing about, I remember where I was when I found out that Princess Diana died. Like, I remember the exact moment that I realised you could put things up your arse as well as push things out of it.
It was a momentous day.
But you can see why, like, you know, every serial killer has their defining moment. I would say being gang raped by 4 homeless guys in the back of a train at 14 is a good enough one.
That's a big moment.
It sounds horrendous that this poor 14-year-old boy has had a shit life.
In anyone's life.
I know he's like horrid, but I just feel like this is a guy who's just been shat on his whole life.
Yeah, I do.
Everyone's fucked him over.
Part of me does. It is a very sad story. You can pity him when he was a child, when he didn't have any guidance and he was just unloved to a certain extent. But as he gets a bit older, the sympathy's got to run out. Yeah,
but do you know what? There was a guy in my school who had, I'd say, learning difficulties looking back. One of my friends was in PE class with him, and he was doing like is it called a deadlift? I don't know, where you like lift a weight up and you have it over your head and your arms out straight.
Did you go to school or prison?
That's how they do things in Wales. Right? So he was doing that, so my friend Chris had like this weight above his head, and someone came along and kegged him because we're 15 and that's hilarious. And then I should change his name. The guy with like learning difficulties, let's just call him David. David just came up to him, and as he was holding this weight above his head because he couldn't pull his trousers up, just whispered in his ear, "I've got bigger balls than you," and then just sort of shifted away again. But David, I remember all the horrible kids used to be really horrible to him, and he obviously had a really low IQ. And then I remember trying to be nice to him, being like, "Morning, David," and he'd be like, "Fuck off." But it's because he had been treated so badly by people for so long, he didn't know how to behave.
Just so used to being...
Yeah, and he just thought that everyone was being horrible. So he didn't even know how to behave nicely because he'd only just had shit from people. So I kind of feel... and then David went on to bum a load of people. No.
David's in prison now.
Well, I don't actually know what's happened to the real guy. Yeah, I wonder what's happened to him. But that's the thing that I always think about when I read about Carl Panzram, is like, that is a man who's just had a horrid life relentlessly, and then just doesn't know how to be nice. So it's like, well, if I can't be the goodest, I'm going to be the worst.
Yep, probably true.
I'd actually say the worst is someone who uses the word goodest.
Goodest, yeah.
I don't know what that is. No, that's probably a religion now, isn't it? I'm a goodist.
I'm a goodest. Goodest. I'm the goodest girl in the whole wide world. So this is when he's thieving at this point, which has been a pretty consistent thing. He was arrested in Montana for burglary, and he's 14 years old, 180 pounds, and 6'5".
Mad, isn't it? Big boy.
Huge. This is a huge
lad.
He battered a guard, didn't he, in Montana? He beat him
with a wooden plank they found outside, and then because he was just like, because they put him in these juvenile delinquent type places. And he would just be like, I'm just going to cause so much trouble and I'm going to escape. And he would escape from prisons. This is the theme for his whole life. Yep. All the way through his life, he would escape, which is pretty badass again.
Although I'm wondering, because he was such a big nuisance, to put it mildly, and so sort of had no respect for authority and was so big and uncontrollable, did he escape or did they just go, we've got to get rid of this really big guy who's terrifying? Maybe they're just like, just get him out of here. Because, in several times he incited riots in prison.
Yeah.
And he's sodomising everybody.
But I think the people that were guards went there because they like to kick the shit out of people. Because that's what they did with him. When he knocked that guy out with a plank, they didn't go, here's another 6 months. They all just beat the shit out of him.
Although that happened, but he's a big guy. And he's not going to ever back down, is he? He's not ever going to become submissive to beatings because he's too angry. He did.
They use this thing in the prisons at the time. I think it's called like the Auburn system, which is basically like vowed that like they had to be silent. They could only answer like in one word and when they were spoken to. And
the Auburn sounds a lot like the Fairburn system. Actually.
It's a good system,
yes,
mate.
It's a good system.
It's really stood this test of time. But they thought that they could grind him down because I imagine that over the time with other people who weren't so mad that they had. So I think that they were just like, every time he did something, they were like, game on. And because there was more of them and they had truncheons and,
True.
I honestly think they thought they could grind him down.
We are going off the memoir of a serial killer here, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
Again, pinch of salt. In 1907, though, he escaped with an inmate and he stole guns.
Jimmy Benson.
Yeah. His mate Jimmy Benson. They just went off and they burnt churches down and went on burglary
rampages. It was like a less adorable Thelma and Louise. Yeah.
He actually had several accomplices, companions as he was doing this thing. But he actually stated that when he got bored of them or felt that they were in the way, he would just kill them. I can believe that. He's pretty ruthless.
I wonder what it would take to annoy him, though. Because do you know what I mean? Like, his idea of bad behaviour is pretty generous. I wonder if it's like, I don't know, if it's just he's like, if he hums that thing one more time. I mean, sure, he can bum me while I'm sleeping.
Yeah, if he keeps eating with his mouth open, I am just going to lose my shit. Maybe it's just something really trivial. Yeah. Be interesting to find out.
I thought of a comedian when you said eating with a mouth open.
Who is it?
We're going to have to beat this out, but have you heard?
No.
Well, apparently it's really bad.
Could he get any more annoying?
It's like a cement mixer with cerebral palsy. When he had to live with him, and he said He texted me one day and he was like, I'm sat here listening to him. He's like a dog with a toffee.
We're obviously going to beep his name out, but a very annoying young man. He's just become 10% more annoying in my book. And I do keep a book. He says a good quote, actually, at this point. When he left this jail, wasn't he told that it was pure... Oh, no, because he left one prison, he was told it was pure and lily-like and reformed, and he was given $5 and a ticket to the next town. He said about Jesus... I love him so much, I just want to crucify him all over again. Which is, you know what? Proper sarky.
Yeah, it is. I think he's quite funny.
He is quite dry, isn't he? He's dry.
I think he genuinely is a really smart guy, because like he was when he blew up, when he started a fire in his prison, and there was another one that they caught. He would make a firebomb, so it was a timed device that would go off when he left. Because they found one and dismantled it, but they didn't find another one, and it caused like £100,000 worth of damage. But I just don't think, like, imagine if that intellect was channeled into like
something productive.
Yeah, it could have cured cancer or AIDS or any one of the other diseases he might have been spreading.
Yeah, he probably was riddled with.
I don't imagine he was like, hold on, I'm just going to pop a rubber on. I doubt it was top of his list.
No, I imagine that it was pretty rancid down there. Pretty rancid. He's actually going under the name, though, at this point. One of his many cool aliases of Jefferson Baldwin, and he's in North Dakota. And this is where something interesting happens. He's in a bar. Of course he is. He likes a drink. And an army recruiter comes in, recruiting for the army, of course, obviously. And he decides to join up.
Yeah.
And he goes to boot camp, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he lies about his age to get in because he's not old enough yet. He goes to boot camp, and then the first day that he gets given his uniform... He's chucked into... He's told off for subordination and then tries to go AWOL, breaks in, steals a load of things from his army, like, what do you call them, peers, steals like £80 worth of clothes, $80 worth, to go AWOL, and then he gets caught, and then he gets thrown into military prison.
Well, I just think, I'm sure he's looking for some structure in his life, but... Carl, you don't like authority.
Yeah.
The army is probably not the best choice for you.
Absolutely. Well, because I know for some people it's the making of them, but it was never going to work for Carl.
No.
So he gets put in this really like brutal military. Like even to get there to the prison, they were shackled inside a lot of train journeys here. So it's a really great advert for Interrail, isn't it? So they're shackled inside this boxcar, and it was a 1,000-mile journey, and they weren't given water or food for any of it.
Oh my god! Do you know? I'll be honest with you. It sounds like Ryanair. I tell you, it does sound like actually. I don't know if I've told this story before on the podcast. I don't think I have. I went to Hawaii many years ago with an ex-boyfriend, and we went from where was it? Arizona. Now. I thought, well, this is an internal flight. It's going to Hawaii. It's still America. My God, that plane took ages, to the point of we're like, why is there no food and drink? And we were both really panicked. So we got the air hostess and I said, excuse me, can you tell me how long this plane is going to take? And she went, we've got another 3 hours, right? We'd been on it for ages. And I went, can we just have a drink, please? Why is there no food and drink? She went, well, it's an internal flight. The flight took longer to get from Arizona to Hawaii than it did to get from England to New York. I was so baffled by it. And when I got off, I was like, that was the worst experience of my life. So I know how he feels. United Airlines, fuck you. I had to buy a snack box for $5, which consisted of some cheese that was like rubber and a cracker. Prison food. Horrible.
Mate, you should exact some revenge.
Maybe now's not the right climate to
good point, yeah. Whoops, never mind.
Yeah, I'm going to go down to that airport and I'm going to show them.
So worried this podcast is going to be used for evidence in any number of
Well, I've already mentioned that I'm going to get a flip knife on a train. God knows what I'm going to do on an aeroplane.
What other public transports can you ruin for everyone?
Hovercraft. They've not been attacked for a long time.
They should be. There's fucking segways. So embarrassing. I saw a grown man on one of them the other day in London. And he got stuck on, they have bumps on pavements to let blind people know it's a crossing. He got stuck
so
on the bumps. So embarrassing to watch someone try and lean forward their way out of that.
I just can't believe people would actually go on those things.
It's so embarrassing. They started spontaneously combusting, didn't they? Because they banned them. That's why they've disappeared again.
So they just started blowing up.
Yeah, and it was always fat kids I saw and like, get it off that and make him walk home. That's what he doesn't need, an easier way to move around. Christ.
Oh God, awful, aren't they?
Really awful.
I'd be ashamed. I think if someone said to me, "I'll give you 10 grand to go around on one of them for a week," I don't think I could do it.
I love that talking about all these horrible rapes and burglaries. You've just been like, I'm so matter of fact, and then be like, oh God, if one of my kids on a set, I'd be so ashamed. I don't know where to put my face.
I'd never get over it. Oh, I think I'd have to kill myself. But he's on this is terrible because he's having a horrible journey with all these other inmates to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Hard disciplined.
His sentence was given to him by William Taft, who went on to be an American president who at the time was Secretary of War, which is so bad. Carl Panzram would have been a really good Secretary of War. He'd been fucking great at that. So he had this thing against William Taft, who will come back into play a couple of times in the story.
So this sort of punishment that they were getting, it was harsh, wasn't it? It was hard labour. Wasn't at one point he was strapped to a metal ball, like
Well, they were understaffed, so they basically didn't know what to do with all these, like really strong people. So he had a 50-pound metal ball attached to a chain and his leg that he used to have to carry around. Because that's what you want, more upper body strength from someone who's 6'5" and angry. So he was just sort of left to, and the whole time he was just plotting his way to get out of there. And he would try and escape. He would get caught. He would get beaten up. They used to torture them. They used to hang them from the ceiling. There's all sorts, chain them to walls. So it just made him. He said something like that when he came out of there, he was just full of hate, and he was like, and then he went, "I was a rotten egg before I went in there." Which is so adorable. It really wasn't cricket what I was doing.
Oh, sorry, old chap. He actually claimed that he burnt down the prison workshop as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did do that.
And by this point, may I just stress, he's still only 19 years old. I mean, I know he's done a lot of bad stuff, but I feel pretty useless now.
I know. Everyone, and Adele thinks she achieved a lot with that album. No way.
In 1910, he's out and he said, was the spirit of meanness, didn't he?
Yeah.
And 1913, he's back in prison again.
Well, the 1911, don't you remember he was travelling with that Indian guy? Well, it says with an Indian. I don't know what kind of Indian that is, because it's used in many different ways in America. And they attacked a railroader, they robbed him, and it was only $35 they got from him. And then they bound his legs and arms and stuffed a sock in his mouth. And Carl Panzram said, I thought while he was like that, I'd commit a little sodomy on him. And then he said he's still there unless the buzzards and coyotes have finished the last of him long ago. So he just by this time he's like, okay, this guy is legit a maniac criminal. He's like a career criminal. That's it. That's all he can ever do. It's not like he's going to reform. No. He is what he is now.
Yeah, he's not going to change now. In 1913, he's going under the name of Jeff Davis. And he's in prison again in Chinook, Montana. And he gave his occupation, which is quite interesting, as a waiter and a teamster.
Oh, as a team player, though. Teamster.
Teamster.
I think that's adorable, whatever that is.
I don't know what it is.
It does sound like you should be working in a Phones for You shop.
Yeah, teamster. Maybe it is another word for, sodomist, and we don't know.
Oh, really? And I'm like, but it kind of sounds like the kind of thing that, I don't know, people at, a Bible camp would call the camp people. Or like a...
Hey, teamsters.
Yeah, but like, hey, Teamster Dave, come on over here. We're going to play kickball.
Well, strap yourself in. I've done a quick Google.
What is it?
Teamster. Are you comfortable with this?
Yeah.
Lorry driver.
Oh, really?
Or a driver of a team of animals.
I thought it was going to be something really horrific.
Yeah, I was trying.
Apparently a team is the piece of skin that...
Yeah. So, being the teamster, again, another cowboy fantasy there, he planned his escape, didn't he? Didn't he plan an escape at this prison and then he got caught?
Yeah. Every prison he's in, he plans an escape, and everyone he manages to get out. Yeah, he escaped within 8 months. He was sentenced to a year, but was out within 8 months. And then, in 1915, he was trying to do a deal with the DA, and they double-crossed him. So he ended up with 7 years in Oregon State Penitentiary. So as much as he is a bell end, also everyone is fucking him over at every point since he's been born. So I get why he's such an angry young man.
And at this point, he's just a thief and an arsonist.
Yeah.
Nobody knows about... And a rapist. Nobody knows...
And a rapist, of course.
And a rapist. Nobody knows about the murders at this point. He absconded from jail with a pretty nurse. I don't know. I think the guy's a fantasist.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know, because while he was there, he used to start fires. He would instigate riots as well. Smashed up the kitchen with an axe. And then he escaped in 1918. But
in what prison are you getting access to an axe? Who's leaving these axes around?
Yeah, I would say if you have an axe, don't leave it in the kitchen.
Do you think maybe they were sort of like, this guy is a pain in the neck. Can we just let him go? If we let him go, he's not our problem anymore. I would be surprised if they thought he's just too much trouble.
Do you think?
I would not be surprised. Like, in those days, the stress you'd have to put up with, because he was a big guy as well.
Yeah,
he was like 6'5", I think.
Yeah, and apparently when he arrived, even back at the boys' school, the correctional facility, he was like 180 pounds, and it was like a man. So that's why a lot of them didn't, they stood up to him as best they can. But he was terrifying.
Yeah, he absconded from these prisons in May 1918. He jumped on a ship on the East Coast, went to South America, and he worked in a copper mine and also on an oil rig in Chile, which he later burnt down for no good reason. But you see...
Well, that's not very green, is it?
No, it's not. I don't doubt that he did some things, but he also claimed to have been in a prison in Glasgow. How?
I don't know how he got to Glasgow. It's a very weird part of the story, isn't it?
It's very... Well, it gets odder, because this is all stuff that comes out after the event, because we know these stories and about these murders because he was in prison and made friends with a guard, and which we'll come to in a bit. And then he ended up in Deer Lodge, didn't he?
Yep.
Deer Lodge prison. This is where he says, I learnt to be a wolf.
This is so weird. What his definition of what a wolf is very, very different to what mine is. He said, okay, oh God, this makes me feel so sad.
Do it in a voice.
No. At that place, I got to be an experienced wolf. What's an experienced wolf? I'm just wondering. So he said, I'd start the morning with sodomy, and I would work as hard as I could all day, and sometimes half the night. And because he was so massive, all the prisoners were scared, and they would just do it. It's awful. He said, I was so busy committing sodomy that I didn't have time to serve Jesus, as I've been taught to do in these reform schools. So I'm so sorry I forgot to do my prayers. I was busy bumming. So he literally would just walk around raping people.
It's horrible.
All day. It's so frightening. It's such a frightening way to be around someone like that, I imagine. And it's so frightening. Like, his life must have been frightening. Like, to think that that's an okay way to behave.
He definitely doesn't know what a wolf is. He doesn't, does he?
No.
But it's fun to go to the zoo with him, isn't it? Don't show him the elephant, for God's sake. He doesn't care, though, at this point. He doesn't give a toss about anything, does he? He ends up in Salem, and he gives his birthplace as Alabama an occupation as thief. Very honest with one of those things. And this was a very abusive prison. There was torture. They had the Auburn system as well. They were shackled, they were whipped. It was...
Yeah, cat and nine tails they used to put on them.
Yeah,
awful.
Pretty horrific place. And on May the 12th, 1918, he escaped and changed his name to John O'Leary because he was heading to New York City, and that's full of Irish people. And it was in New York, actually, that he said he strangled a woman to death for no good reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so just killed her.
See, there's a really small percentage of, what are they called? They kill for convenience, and I think he's one of them.
I think...
Literally anyone who gets in his way is like, well, I'll just kill him.
It's very interesting. He reminds me a lot of Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, the hitman. It really reminds me a lot of him with some of the things he said he's done. Just killing people. Because Kuklinski just killed anybody for no good reason. Like, he'd be walking home from a bar and he'd kill a tramp or a homeless person. He was just... And as well as being a hitman, he was just a murderer, and he didn't have any compassion at all. And he just reminds me quite a lot of him because he's such a big guy as well, and he's just going around just killing.
Ugh, scary, isn't it?
In 1920, now what we've missed out here, we must let you know, he actually burgled. We mentioned William Taft.
Yeah.
He burgled him once when he got out of prison and stole some jewellery and bonds and guns. And in 1920, he goes to Connecticut and burgles his house again.
Yeah, but by mistake.
Mistake?
Yeah, he's just like, oh, that house looks rich. So he went in there and then steals a load of stuff, steals a load of money, and then realises halfway through that it's William Taft's house again.
I just imagine, like, Taft going, Panzram! And, like, shaking his fist to the heavens.
But, I mean, he's living, it's a horrendous life, but, like, he's travelling completely around the world. He's been to South America, he's been to Europe. Allegedly was in prison in Glasgow.
Allegedly. I don't... See, there's a lot of things I don't
doubt
believe.
He was bumming his way around there, was he?
What's that, Dave? I don't think so. Yeah, no chance. He actually stole $40,000 from William Taft.
Yep.
Who really should not be keeping that amount in the house. But these were the old days. And he bought a yacht with this money.
It's exactly what new money would do, isn't it? Buy a yacht. And so he gets on this yacht, and then he starts robbing other yachts. So up to now, he's literally tried to be a cowboy, a pirate. If he was going to do his sexy nurse's outfit, that's all the things you possibly
Maybe that's why he ran off with the sexy nurse, just for the costume.
I'll be having that.
But to do the yacht, to refit it, he said he lured 10 sailors, raped them, and threw them overboard. This is a lad from Minnesota, a landlocked state, but yet he can just get a yacht and know how to sail it. And not only does he just sail it around the local area, he claims he went to Africa in this boat. So he can navigate, he can sail, he can refit a yacht. I don't believe him.
Really?
Don't believe the guy.
I don't know. I think that extreme circumstances can bring out an extreme skill set.
Look, I get panicked by a lot of things, right? But, I'm shocked that Britain are leaving the EU. But I'm not that shocked that I know how to navigate a boat. Even though that would be really helpful at the moment.
Yeah, too fucking right. I'm coming to the Republic of Ireland.
He'd hired a team of sailors, he says, to refit the yacht. And he ended up raping and killing them all. So this was like 10 guys.
Yeah. Well, you don't believe that he did this, but I do. So what he would do is he would hire a crew, and then he'd go out and they'd go hunting crocodiles and things. And then he would come back to shore and he'd have a different crew again, and everyone was like, this guy's very weird, but I'm not going to ask any questions. And when they started to get more and more sort of suspicious, that's when he went to Africa. So he went to the Congo and he hired this team of 10 people. He said, right, we're going to go and hunt crocodiles. So they hunted a load of them. They were worth loads at that time. And then the people he'd hired were like, we want a cut from these crocodiles. And he was like, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot you all in your backs and the back of your head while you're in the canoe. And then he just fed them to the crocodiles. But you think he's bullshitting?
See, the reason I think he's bullshitting is for a lot of reasons. We're going off, as we'll get to in a bit, going off his own words about his life. And it's absolutely fantastic. Nothing's simple. It's always huge things. He's got this yacht and he's got people to refit it. But then he managed to... A man who's from Minnesota, a landlocked state, has the knowledge to sail a yacht to Africa, right? I don't know. Maybe he did convince someone to go with him who could navigate. But I don't know. It just seems a bit OTT.
This is the thing that seems OT. What, you think it's all too, heroic, or...?
Well, it's all too much, a bit all look at how I've adapted, look at me doing this. Yeah, there's adaptable and quick learning, and there's a bloody fibber.
But do you not think, I genuinely think, because his life is so erratic and borderline erotic, that I think that, he's only telling us the stuff that worked. He's not telling us all the days that he slept in a ditch or got beaten up.
True.
Or got jumped up. He's missing out all that stuff. He's just telling you about the times that he won. And he's been busy. He was drunk. He's got drunk at 8. He was arrested.
Yeah.
He's had plenty of time to get through all this stuff. I think that most of this stuff is true.
And he was an alcoholic, and you are more likely to do sort of things on a whim when you've had a drink.
Yeah.
So maybe. There's a few things I still don't believe. He claims to have sodomised 1,000 men. I think, let's face it, I don't think it's 1,000. He's burgled the same guy's house twice. He's definitely bummed the same person twice. He's definitely done it.
So you think it's maybe only like 500 guys?
Probably about 500, yeah. Or maybe 600. I certainly don't think 1,000. No. I don't know.
I don't think that's too much, you know. Well, like, I don't think it's that huge. Because, 10 years, that would be like... So, if you bummed 100 people... I can't believe we're doing bumming maths. If we did 100 people a year, that's like one every, 3.5 days? Something like that.
And he's in prison.
Yeah, and he's in prison, and he's he's literally said, I got up in the morning, and then I would bum people for as much of the day as I could. And these weren't quiet prisons; they were stuffed full of guys.
I need convincing about a lot of this stuff. I think a lot of his tales are very tall. While he was in the Congo, he not only kills this boat full of men, he also, really horrible. I mean, all of this is horrible, but this one's particularly sad. He found a 12-year-old boy who, what did he say? He said something like, he was looking for something and he found it. Because he raped the kid and killed him in a really brutal way. I'm
going to read a quote from him, but he does... he does use a pretty horrible word in it. So I'm going to... a word that rappers like to use that isn't bitch or hoe. So I'm going to read the quote that he did, but I'm not going to say the word because I don't feel comfortable doing it. So I'm just going to say jelly instead. So I'm sure you can guess what the word is. So I went down to town and bought a ticket on the Belgian steamer to Lobito Bay down the coast. There I hired a canoe and 6 jellies and I went out hunting in the bay and backwaters. I was looking for crocodiles. I found them, plenty. They were hungry. I fed them. I shot all 6 of those jellies and dumped them in. The crocs done the rest. I stole their canoe and went back to town.
I'll be honest, I think I'd rather... Jelly sounds worse. That sounds more racist.
I made it sound more racist.
You made it worse, yeah.
So I apologise to any jellies who are listening.
Any jellies out there who are having a wobble. Hey! Terrible.
Dun, 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 dun.
Terrible joke.
But he killed a little boy as well when he was in the Congo. It was like an 11-year-old boy that wandered past him. He was looking for something and he found it, and he basically took this kid out to a gravel pit about 1/4 mile away, sodomised him, and then beat him to death. There's a horrible description I don't want to read.
Yeah, it is horrible. We're not going to read it out. It's online if you really want to...
He said of him, he will never be any deader.
All right.
I know, he's such a fucking teenage high school killer.
Yeah, well...
Never be any deader.
Yeah.
Put that on a hoodie as well, you prick. Write that on the front of your maths book. So, where are we up to?
We're in 1921.
So he's on this boat and he's got 2 more crew members and he's planning to kill them, but then there's a storm, it smashes his boat up and the guys swim away, they're all scattered away in the storm, so he didn't get a chance to steal them. So now he's got no boat.
Yeah, he survives.
Yeah, I know, there's no fucking justice, is there? It's almost like someone was looking down on him and protecting him.
Yeah. It's almost like he's making a lot of it up. But,
so yeah, he is now boatless and just sort of stuck there, burglarizing places, because he wanted to burgle places in when he was out in Africa, and he would break into houses and there would be nothing to steal because they were so poor.
Yeah, I don't know what he was expecting there. He came back to the USA in 1922 and he considered being a hitman, like Richard Kuklinski, and he bought a silencer for his gun. But what was the problem with it? It wasn't...
He said, he was like, I decided I was going to be a hitman because I found murder really easy. So I went and bought this silencer, tried it out, because he used to try out... He would just walk along through the countryside and he would just shoot through people's windows, hoping that he would kill someone. And if he saw horses or cows in the field, he would just try and shoot them. He's just horrible.
Yeah.
So he was trying this silencer out and he realised it was still really loud. So he was like, And he was like, that's the only reason I didn't become a hitman. And it's like, what? Because silencers aren't quiet enough.
For a man who does what he wants when he wants, he gives up very easily, doesn't he?
Maybe that's because he's one of those classic, I'm going to start my own business, and then, they can't stick to anything.
Yeah.
And that's why he's always travelling around and always changing jobs. And
how's your cafe going? It's closed.
I'm a thief now.
Yeah.
Are you still a teamster? No, not anymore.
No,
Gave that
not
up again.
anymore. I am still a thief. So, as well, he renewed the Did he renew a licence for a yacht then?
So, yeah, basically he renewed
O'Leary?
this John O'Leary captain's licence, because even though he had no ship and he still registered the Akita, he was like, I'm just going to steal one and paint Akita on the side of it.
And this is when he kills a 12-year-old boy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really horrible. This young lad, George Lyons, was sent to the store for milk by his mother. Now, a neighbour saw him with a stranger, didn't say anything. Simple times. And he raped and killed the boy, and the police thought it was the local gang of paedophiles. Because everywhere.
When are they going to give paedophiles a break? Also, don't let the gang just knock around.
Separate them.
Better the devil you know, eh?
So then he left Salem because of this murder and went to Westchester in 1923. Then he went to Yonkers in New York, which is one of the best names for any place. Yonkers. Yeah. And he's going as John O'Leary then, and he met a 15-year-old boy called George Williamson. Was it Williamson?
Yeah.
And he said, I wanted to teach him the fine art of sodomy.
It's a fine art, apparently. Anyone who's studying, doing an art foundation course, once you've done inks and watercolours, you'll obviously be moving on to sodomy.
Sodomy module. And what happened though, apparently George was familiar and fine with the art of sodomy.
So he said. He said that he was familiar to it and was fine with me doing it. I think this is almost the closest he has, except for later on with Henry Lester, to a relationship by the sound of it.
Because he also says as well that none of the rapes that he committed were sexually motivated. He said it was all about power and dominance. I think he might have been.
Did you come? That's all I'd say.
Did you?
If you came, then I'd say it's something sexual.
Yeah. So then after this, where does he end up? He never stays still. He's done more travelling than I can. He ended up breaking both of his legs.
This is one hell of a gap year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is one hell of a gap year. He broke both his ankles, actually, when he was in one of the prisons. And he walked with a limp after that, didn't he?
Yeah, because they didn't set the bones. So he damaged his spine, broke both his legs and his ankles, and they were basically like, well, fuck you. So he walked with a permanent limp because the bones didn't set right. That's
got to be a tentative day when you go, I'm going to see if my ankle's set.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stand up.
Well, it's that whole thing of like, maybe that's what was wrong with him. But my parents, this is so farmery, I apologise in advance. They had a ram that was really bad-tempered and used to attack things. And they finally caught him, and his horn had started to grow into the side of his head. So they sawed it off and took it out, and he was fine. It's just because he was in like constant agony. Because this horn was about to burst through the bone in his head.
Oh.
And it's like, no wonder he's a rat. You know what you're like when you've got toothache?
Yeah.
So maybe if he'd... No, because he'd been pumping and raping people before. I take it back. That's a flawed theory. It doesn't matter. Maybe he had bad teeth. I don't know. I'm really trying to see the best in him.
Maybe he did just have toothache for like 30 years.
Like the Egyptians.
But then, where does he end up? Because he's all over the bloody show.
So, yeah, he was back to the USA in about 1928 after going all around Africa, fucking it all up over there. So, eventually he lands a 25-year sentence in Leavenworth, back there where he was years ago.
Yeah.
Federal penitentiary. And when he got sent down for 25 years for burglary, and he said, I will kill the first man that bothers me. And true to his word... On June 20th, 1929, he killed Robert Wank, is that how you say his name? With an iron bar. Loads of witnesses, and after that he got a death sentence.
Yep. Which he didn't... He'd confessed to killing the two boys by this point as well.
Yeah,
he really doesn't care anymore.
Doesn't give a fuck.
He just admits everything. And 25 years in prison, kills the warden, and... This is where, when he gets...
No, it wasn't a warden, it was a laundry guy.
Was it a laundry guy?
Yeah.
Kills the laundry chap. And this is where, though, and he's sentenced to death, which apparently he was quite happy about this. He said that he didn't want to appeal against his sentence, and he threatened to kill any human rights groups who sort of petitioned on his behalf.
Yeah, yeah. He hated human rights. He probably would have voted leave as well.
He's so angry, and then when he's in prison, he does have a very significant friendship with a guard called Henry Lesser. Now, Carl had been being a nuisance, as per usual, and he was attacked by the guards, and he was beaten, and he was suspended from a beam. It was a very brutal system. Henry Lesser saw this happening and felt very sorry for him, and he told his colleague to take him $1 and so he could get himself some food and some cigarettes. Carl sees this as... I like how he's Carl and not Panzram.
Yeah.
Carl saw this as an act of kindness, and it was the first... He recalled it as being the only time he could remember somebody being kind to him. So he started this sort of friendship with Henry Lesser, and they used to talk, and Panzram's telling him about his life and things that happened to him. And Henry Lesser says, you should write this down. So he gives him a pencil and some paper, and he starts to write his autobiography, which is actually, you can buy it. It's called Killa, A Journal of Murder. It's on Amazon. It was £18 when I had a look. It was only published in 1970. It's co-written. I don't know how it's set out. I think there might be two people who sort of went through it and sort of analysed him, and it's broken up with these quotes. But it's there and you can buy it.
Apparently it was like, because people he started to write these bits of autobiography, and they were sort of released and fed out. And then, like, you know, the highfalutin elite social circles, it was critically acclaimed. And those are the people who were like, we've got to get this man a reprieve. You can see he's got a bright mind.
A bit like what happened with Jack
Unterweger, yeah. Where he wrote a book, and everyone's like, well, a man who writes so beautifully couldn't possibly have raped all these guys, and tried to get him out. But at least Carl Panzram had the decency to turn around and tell him to fuck off.
Yeah.
It is hard to know with this autobiography how much is true.
Now, you see, this is the thing. This is where I start to... Because of this book, and because of everything getting mixed up, facts and fantasy, I think, have got mixed up quite a lot. Because he's had the opportunity to write his own stuff. He's a psychopath. He's going to make it as fantastic and wonderful and anti-brave and all the rest of it as he possibly can. So that's why I doubt quite a few of the stories. Why I'm suspicious about the yacht.
Some of the police officers he encountered just called him Chiseler, which is a nickname for a man who confesses to crimes he hasn't done.
Ah, really?
So yeah, he did have a reputation for that. But he confessed to some crime. There was at one point there was $500 reward out for his arrest, and then when he confessed to these murders, he tried to claim it himself.
For God's sake. Oh, please.
I think he's a bit of a legend. I mean, he's awful, but...
He's awful.
He's got a cracking sense of humour.
He's got a very good sense of humour. Now, he was looking forward to his execution, as he mentioned, and on the 5th of September 1930, he was hanged. And he had quite... even to the very end, he was still kicking off.
Yeah.
Because there was a journalist there, and he spat at the journalist. And there's a bit of information that says... That is fair. There's a bit of information that says he practically skipped up to the gallows.
Yeah. He said... While the guy was getting the noose ready, he said, hurry up, you Hoosier bastard. I really hope Hoosier is not a racial slur.
It's a native or inhabitant of Indiana.
Okay.
So that's fine.
Not too bad. That's fine. I thought, I just said something really offensive there. So he spat at this guy and said, I can hang a dozen men while you're fooling around. So he really went down punching.
He did. He really, really did. And
he even turned on Henry Lesser to the end. So he wrote this 20,000 word confession, basically, of all his murders and all his crimes. But towards the end, he turned on Henry, thought that he was against him. But I think he reminds me there of, Eileen Wernos, if you see footage of her when she's desperate to be put on death row. That's just like a mad person who's had a horrible life, who's striking out at everyone, even the people who've been nice to them.
Very, very... There's actually an interview with Lesser on YouTube, and you can watch it. It's very 70s, which is fantastic. It has the feel like someone's going to make a joke like it should be Anchorman.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we're here from the University of so-and-so, and we're going to do this interview with Henry Lesser, ex-prison guard. Henry Lesser comes across as a very nice man. Then I always think, though, you did get his autobiography published, and I always think how much money... You probably wouldn't have made much money, but you think, was there a bit of...
Oh, are you thinking that he's... I don't know, because apparently he was just like this wide-eyed sort of Jewish 26-year-old
Yeah, and he was
guard
quite a
who's-
sweet guy, and
Yeah.
he used to. The reason he became prison guard was because he worked in a clothing store that closed down, and he also got the sack from one job because he set up a union. So
Oh, really?
He'd be your best mate.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I don't like Panzram is because one of the only times he stopped killing people is when he got regular work, and the only time he got regular work was when he was hired as a worker to go against the unions. So that's the only thing that really puts me off about it. I don't like a black leg.
It's perfect job for him, though.
Don't like anyone who crosses a picket line.
Perfect job for him. Perfect. Well, that's Carl Panzram.
Yeah, it's so confusing because.
Confusing.
And what percentage do you think's true?
32.
No, more than that.
32.
Less than a third, mate.
I think the sodomy is true. I think
1,000?
The murdering the kids is true. No, I don't think 1,000. I think murdering the kids is true. I think he probably did murder some of his travelling companions. I don't even think he went to he didn't go to Glasgow. Come on.
It's very weird if he did.
If he joined that in Merchant Navy, then I could believe it. But
he wrote to the. He was I'm just fascinated by the end bit where he's in prison, he's on death row, and all these human rights groups are trying to pardon him. And he wrote to President Hoover, and he wrote a letter saying, "I am perfectly satisfied with my trial and the sentence. I do not want another trial. I absolutely refuse to accept either a pardon or commutation should either or the other be offered to me." But I think he's been
just in case you're thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I didn't even want it anyway. Like,
Just
of course
so
I'm
you
not
know.
gonna do that. But I think there's something I just feel really sorry for him. I feel like he's really clever, and he just had such a horrible life that there was only, I don't know, there was only one way for him to go.
It is. I really feel for him as a child because it was a hard life. I don't think his parents were particularly bothered. I feel that anyone who's getting drunk at 8, some issues there. But I just think he had no feelings.
Really?
And it's sad because I don't think he'd be able to really react if anyone did like him. Because women liked him, didn't they?
Yeah.
Women found him really attractive.
Yeah, we used to find him really attractive. In 1922, you see, he had this, he was in Washington, D.C. City Jail, and people were questioning him about killing those kids, and one of them said, "What is the point of killing a kid?" And he said, "I hate all the fucking human race. I get a kick out of murdering people." I just think that's it. He's so damaged by the world that that's all he feels that he has. Oh, it's just horrible. It's just really sad,
really
isn't it?
Depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's him.
That's him. Big scary bastard.
Big scary bastard.
We're going further afield for next time, aren't we?
We are. We're going to China.
Go on, you pronounce his name.
Oh, God, here we go. Let's see who I can offend. We're going all the way to China. Yangzin Hai.
If we're pronouncing that surname,
Yeah, I think that's no, it is. It's
do.
Yangzin Hai. If it is incorrect, do tell me. But I'm 98% certain that I'm confident with that. So he confessed to committing 65 murders. So it should be a big one.
Yeah,
It should be a big one.
because we were going to look at some others that you've suggested, because that came from suggestions from you. So thank you very much. But tell you what, mate, we've got rape fatigue.
Yeah, I can't take any more
Yeah.
rapes.
Don't take that out of context.
Yeah,
and
don't
use
take
that
that
as
out
a
of
ringtone.
context. Yeah.
But it's emotionally taxing to read up on these things.
Listen, I had to turn off the other night. There was a 2-parter on about Fred and Rose West, which I had seen before. And because I've been doing a little bit of research for the podcast, I was like, oh, brilliant, this is on. Came back from a gig, and I went, do you know what? I'm not in the mood. And I turned it off and I went to sleep.
Really?
Because I couldn't take any more.
Goodness me.
Couldn't take it.
Are we going to make ourselves hate murder?
No, we're going to be fine.
You brave soldier.
It's like hummus. You can overkill on hummus.
Yeah,
you can
but then you always
and then
want
you go
some
off
of
it,
it, yeah.
and then you definitely go back to it.
I did that with the Third Strokes album. No, I still love it again.
That's it. That's Carl Panzram. So thank you for listening, as ever. We like it. Thanks to everyone that's emailed us.
Oh my God, they're great.
There's
We
some
love
lovely
reading them.
emails. Really interesting stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, if you're a creepy shit, don't feel the need though.
Yeah.
We'll just delete it.
We'll just, there'll be no mention of it.
Yeah, if you want to give us a nice review on iTunes, that really helps us. That would be great. And just, if you like what we do, just tell one person. That would be fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening.